Anna Carter stood near the far corner of the Grand Langston Estate drawing room, her posture straight yet quiet, her modest gray dress almost merging into the deep burgundy of the velvet curtains behind her. Sunlight streamed in through tall windows but barely touched her, as though the room itself conspired to keep her hidden. Around her, the Langston family gathered in designer black suits, polished shoes, and somber silk dresses, sipping champagne and murmuring among themselves. The mood was thick with entitlement and anticipation, and not a single pair of eyes turned toward Anna. No one greeted her. No one asked why she was there. Because, to them, she had never really been there. For 25 years, Anna had walked these marble floors as a housekeeper, a ghost of service in the background of their elegant lives. She had scrubbed floors while they danced across them in heels. She had packed their suitcases while they jetted off to Europe. She had wiped tears off children's cheeks in the dead of night while their parents slept in indifference. She had made sure this house remained a home, even when its occupants had long stopped treating it as such. They remembered her name, but only as a tool of convenience. Elise Langston, the late Mr. Edward Langston's eldest daughter, always called her Annie, a name Anna despised for its diminutive sound. She had never corrected her. She never dared. Correction requires visibility, and Anna had long learned that in this household, invisibility was her only shield. Now, as the family waited for the reading of the will, the air bristled with self-importance. Elise leaned toward her brother Daniel and whispered with a smirk playing on her lips, "Can you believe she showed up? She probably thinks she's getting something. Maybe one of Mother's chipped teacups." Daniel let out a quiet chuckle, the kind that dripped with inherited cruelty. "She still believes loyalty means something," he muttered. Their laughter was soft, but it sliced like glass. Anna heard every word, but she didn't flinch. Her hands folded neatly in front of her, she stared at the same polished floorboards she had scrubbed for years, the same ones that had soaked in champagne spills, childlike joy, and quiet grief. She felt the familiar weight of the room's disdain settle on her shoulders like dust, silent, suffocating, always present. And yet, she stood, not to claim, not to accuse, but simply to bear witness. The ticking of the antique clock echoed louder as the hour neared. 2 o'clock, the appointed time. A hush fell over the room when the doors opened, and Martin Hale, Edward Langston's lifelong attorney, stepped in holding a thick manila envelope. He wore the expression of a man carrying both duty and burden. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice calm and clear, "thank you for gathering here for the reading of Mr. Edward Langston's final will and testament." The murmurs ceased. Everyone took their seats in grand leather chairs lined in dark mahogany. Anna remained standing, unnoticed by most, though Martin's eyes flicked briefly toward her with a faint, knowing nod. It was the first human acknowledgement she had received all day. For a moment, that nod was enough. In a room filled with legacy and lineage, Anna stood with nothing. No bloodline, no last name carved in stone. Just years, decades, of quiet service, invisible compassion, and thankless care. But the truth, like the will sealed in that envelope, was about to emerge. And no one, not even Anna herself, was ready for what it would reveal. As Martin Hale carefully unfolded the aged parchment, a tense silence enveloped the room like a tightening noose. The Langston family exchanged glances heavy with expectation that the legacy would follow the well-worn path of wealth and privilege, reserved exclusively for those who bore the family name. Yet, as Martin's voice began to read aloud the words inscribed by the late Edward Langston, the atmosphere shifted, chilling and charged, as if the air itself had turned brittle. To Anna Carter, Martin's voice rang clear, deliberate, echoing off the marble walls, the woman who has served this household with unwavering loyalty, grace, and silent strength for over a quarter of a century. I bequeath the entirety of my estate, the Langston mansion, the complete art collection, all financial assets, and property not otherwise distributed. The words landed like a hammer blow. For a moment, no one breathed. Then came the sound, The shattered clatter of Elise's wine glass hitting the cold marble floor, the tinkling shards scattering like fractured dreams across the polished surface. She gasped, her face twisting with disbelief and fury, rising abruptly, a tempest in motion. This must be a mistake. She spat venomously, eyes blazing with indignation. She's just the maid. This can't be real. Father would never have done this. She must have manipulated him somehow. Beside her, Daniel scoffed, his voice dripping with scorn. This is laughable. We'll contest it. No court would uphold such an outrage. It's ridiculous to think that loyalty or years of service could trump blood. Their words cut like knives, designed to humiliate and erase. The room seemed to swell with disdain, a tide of disbelief crashing against the fragile dignity Anna clung to. Whispers morphed into mocking chuckles, the kind of sneers born from entitlement and privilege that believe themselves untouchable. Yet, Anna remained motionless. Her lips trembled, an almost imperceptible quiver, her knees weak as if the ground beneath her had shifted, but she did not fall. Instead, she slowly lowered herself onto a nearby settee, the weight of shock and humiliation pressing down like a stone on her chest. Her heart pounded, not with anger, but with the quiet resilience that had carried her through years of invisibility. In the face of cruelty, Anna's silence was her shield. It was the strength of someone who had learned that fighting fire with fire only burned herself. Her eyes fixed on the floor, but inside, a storm brewed, a storm born of years of overlooked kindness and unheard sacrifices. Martin Hale's calm voice cut through the rising chaos. There is no mistake. Mr. Langston updated his will 6 months prior to his passing. This document is legally binding. His tone was steady, like an unmovable oak in the tempest of outrage. You are free to contest it if you wish. Elise's fury ignited anew. She snatched the will from his hands, her voice trembling with fury and disbelief. This is absurd. My father would never do this. She must have forced him. Daniel nodded vehemently. We'll fight this and we will win. The courts will see reason. But Martin only nodded quietly and reached into his briefcase. From it, he withdrew a small flash drive, the final piece of proof Edward Langston had left behind. The family fell silent once again as Martin plugged the device into the television above the fireplace. The flickering screen came to life, revealing Edward Langston himself, frail but clear-eyed, seated in his study. His voice, though weak, carried unmistakable conviction. If you are watching this, Edward began, then I have likely moved on from this world. And if my decisions surprise or upset you, I want to explain them myself. Anna's eyes welled with tears, blurring the sharp edges of the room's cruelty into a haze of bittersweet clarity. Edward's voice softened, but did not waver. To my children, I gave you every advantage, education, wealth, comfort. But I also watched. I saw entitlement replace gratitude. I saw kindness wilt before selfishness. And I saw how you treated Anna, the one who never asked for anything, who gave everything silently, who carried this household on her shoulders without complaint. He paused, gathering strength for his final words. Anna was there when your mother died. She stayed to help me raise you when I was broken. She listened, cared, and never sought recognition. I owe her more than this fortune. This is but a small token of my gratitude. The screen faded to black, and with it, the room was left suspended in stunned silence. No sneers, no whispers, just the heavy truth of an inheritance not of blood, but of heart and honor. Anna sat motionless, the weight of years finally lifted, even as the sting of mockery still lingered in the air. The moment the final words of the will were spoken, the room seemed to collapse inward under the weight of disbelief and shock. Faces that had once worn confident masks now betrayed raw confusion and anger, swirling like a storm that no one was prepared to face. Anna Carter, the quiet housekeeper who had lived in the shadows for decades, was suddenly thrust into the unforgiving spotlight of the Langston family's fury and incredulity. Veronica's eyes blazed with a mixture of rage and disbelief as she stumbled backward, clutching the fragile crystal glass that slipped from her grasp and shattered beneath her feet. The sharp clink of broken glass echoed in the vast hall, a piercing symbol of shattered expectations and fractured family bonds. Her voice cut through the silence like a whip laced with venom. "This is impossible. How could Father do this to us? To me? It's an outrage, a betrayal. She's not one of us. She's just a servant." Daniel paced angrily by the grand fireplace, his hands clenched into fists. "She manipulated him," he spat. "There's no other explanation. No father would give away everything to the help. We'll challenge this, legally, publicly, by any means necessary. This won't stand." Around them, the once polished veneer of family unity crumbled, replaced by bitter accusations and harsh whispers. The air was thick with contempt, disbelief, and wounded pride, as if the mansion itself absorbed the tension and whispered tales of betrayal. Yet amid the uproar, Anna remained still, her face a mask of fragile composure, her heart pounding fiercely beneath the surface. She was the calm eye in a hurricane of outrage. Martin Hale, the family's trusted lawyer, stood unmoved by the chaos. His voice, firm and resolute, cut through the storm of emotions. "The will is valid and binding. Mr. Langston revised it just 6 months before his passing. This is the truth, whether you accept it or not." He moved slowly to the sideboard, retrieving a small, innocuous-looking flash drive. To accompany the will, he explained, Mr. Langston recorded a final statement to ensure his intentions were clear. With a click, the drive was inserted into the television above the fireplace, and the flickering screen came alive. Edward Langston's frail but unmistakably clear voice filled the room. His face, pale yet resolute, stared back at them from the screen, his eyes sharp with clarity despite his weakened frame. "If you're watching this, then I have passed on. I expect this news will surprise and perhaps anger some of you. Let me explain, in my own words, why I made these decisions." Anna's breath caught in her throat as she felt the room's collective gaze shift from suspicion to solemn attention. Edward's voice grew softer, more personal, as he spoke of the years he had observed, the disappointments he had silently mourned. "To my children, I gave every advantage: schools, homes, riches. Yet I saw how entitlement corrupted kindness, how selfishness eroded gratitude. But Anna was different. She never asked for anything, yet gave everything. Her loyalty was quiet but unshakable." He paused, then added, "When your mother died, Anna stayed by my side. She helped raise you when I was broken, offering care and strength without demand or complaint. I owe her more than this fortune could ever repay. This inheritance is the least I can do to honor her sacrifices." The screen dimmed, leaving a heavy silence that filled the room like a thick fog. The defiant anger dissolved into stunned reverence, the harsh judgments retreating before the undeniable truth laid bare by Edward's words. Anna's eyes shimmered with tears, a mixture of relief, sorrow, and newfound dignity. The legacy she had never sought was now hers, not just in wealth, but in recognition, in justice, in the long-overdue respect that had been denied for so long. The Langston estate, once a symbol of family pride and entitlement, had been irrevocably changed by the testament of a man who valued heart above blood. And as the echoes of Edward Langston's voice faded into memory, the room understood. This was not just a will, it was a reckoning. The flickering image of Edward Langston on the screen held the room captive, his frailty belying the strength of the convictions he poured out in his final testament. His voice was steady, tinged with the bittersweet weight of a man who had loved deeply, judged fairly, and borne the heavy burden of truth in silence for far too long. As he spoke, the air thickened with unspoken emotions, the regrets, the hopes, and the piercing clarity of a father's heart laid bare. "I have lived long enough to see the fruits of my choices and the shadows cast by my own failures," Edward confessed, eyes locked on the camera as if addressing his children directly, even though they sat stunned and speechless in the very room he once called home. My greatest wish was for you to grow into kindness and honor, but I have witnessed a different path, one paved with entitlement, with disregard for those who serve and sacrifice quietly beside you." He paused, the silence echoing louder than any word, before continuing. "Anna was more than a servant. She was the constant in our ever-changing lives, the quiet strength when grief threatened to consume me, the unwavering hand that steadied this household when I was broken. She did not seek praise or reward. She gave simply because it was right." The weight of his confession settled heavily upon everyone present. The arrogance and entitlement that had once ruled the room seemed to wither under the truth of his words. "I have tried to teach you to value loyalty, humility, and compassion, but lessons unheeded become burdens that break hearts. This estate, this legacy, it is not just property or wealth. It is a reflection of the values I hoped to pass on." His eyes glistened with unshed tears, his voice trembling with the raw honesty of a man who had fought alone for what he believed was just. "To Anna, I leave more than possessions. I leave my gratitude, my respect, and the hope that her kindness will inspire others to see beyond bloodlines and titles. In her, I found the soul of our family, the true heir to our name." As the video ended, the room remained silent, each person grappling with the revelation not only of the inheritance, but of the man behind the will, the father who had chosen love and integrity over tradition and entitlement. Anna's gaze lifted slowly, steady and dignified, no longer the invisible woman in the shadows, but the rightful bearer of a legacy shaped by sacrifice and grace. This was more than a testament of wealth. It was the final lesson of a father who, through love and sorrow, revealed the true meaning of family. The heavy silence that followed the video lingered like a fragile veil, hanging over the room as if the very air had been charged with the weight of the truth just revealed. Eyes that once darted with suspicion and scorn now softened with shock, disbelief, and a dawning understanding that nothing would ever be the same again. Anna stood tall, her hands trembling slightly, not from fear but from the flood of emotions that surged within her, a mix of relief, sorrow, and quiet vindication. For years, she had been unseen, unheard, dismissed as nothing more than a servant, but now the facade was shattered, exposing a deeper story woven with loyalty, sacrifice, and dignity. Her voice, when she finally spoke, was steady but touched with vulnerability. She confessed she had never sought fortune or recognition. Her only desire had been to do what was right, to be a steadfast presence in a world that often overlooked those who give without asking in return. The family's outrage, their disbelief and scorn, only underscored the bitter reality of entitlement blinded by privilege. Yet Anna bore no bitterness. Instead, she felt a profound compassion for the fractured souls before her, souls tied not by blood alone, but by the expectations and burdens of a legacy they had failed to honor. As the eldest daughter stormed forward, voice raised in accusations and denials, Anna met her gaze with a calm strength that neither insults nor anger could shake. The lawyer's steady presence beside her, the undeniable proof of the will and video statement, grounded her firmly in the truth. Every whispered conspiracy, every threat to contest the will, fell like shadows against the solid light of justice and integrity. Anna's inheritance was not a theft but a rightful passage of a legacy defined by grace and unspoken strength. In the days that followed, the grand estate transformed, not just in ownership, but in spirit. Anna opened the once closed doors to the community, turning rooms filled with memories into spaces of hope, art studios, gardens blooming with possibility, shelters for those forgotten by the world. Reporters came and went, eager to tell the story of the humble housekeeper who became the guardian of a fortune, yet she remained unchanged, quiet, humble, a beacon of kindness in a world too quick to judge by status and appearance. One afternoon, as laughter and life filled the halls she once cleaned, a young girl from the shelter tugged gently at Anna's skirt, asking with wide eyes if she was really rich now. Kneeling down to meet the child's gaze, Anna smiled softly and whispered the truth that had guided her all along. True wealth is not measured by gold or property, but by the power to help others, the ability to spread kindness where it is needed most. In that moment, surrounded by warmth and gratitude, Anna found her place, not just as the heir to a fortune, but as the keeper of a legacy far greater than money, the legacy of heart, honor, and humanity finally brought to light.